What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, going to the latest Detroit Lions news. And today, we have a practice squad update. The Lions have made a signing to the practice squad of a player that's name's been floated out for a few weeks now, and he's officially signing with the Detroit Lions. So let's get it started.
Another hot team that we knocked off. It's the next hot team that you knock off. You know how hard it is to win in this league in the playoffs? Do you understand what you're doing right now?
Welcome to another video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, man, we are back with another Lions latest episode. And these practice squad signings have been a lot of fun this year because these players haven't just signed to the practice squad. No, they've actually impacted the game on Sundays. And today, we have a player that looks like he's going to be playing this weekend against the San Francisco 49ers, whether that's Bruce Irvin or Tyson Alualu or Jason Kabinda. You could throw him in that mix. There's been a lot of value in the players the Lions have added to the practice squad. Kendall Vilder, and some of these players, we've seen them a ton. Some of them maybe not as long as others. Some of them we haven't seen at all yet, like a Michael Schofield, for example. But we've added veterans to this practice squad as the year kind of got into the second half, when it was like, hey, we're going to have some guys on this practice squad that we can have step into big moments. And certain guys like Vilder, man, they've played well. So it's like, oh, just keep giving him snaps. Why take him off the field? And the Lions are adding a tight end. With the tight end injuries that they're dealing with to James Mitchell, Brock Wright is expected to miss this weekend's game. He's dealing with a forearm injury. And the Lions are really light at tight end with that injury. I mean, Sam Laporta, we know that he just had a Sam Laporta type of game this last week, right? 9 receptions, super productive in this game. Lions had some great things schematically that they did for him, but he played his butt off. I mean, just shout out to Sam Laporta for fighting his way back last week, and then this week he was just like, okay, that's Sam Laporta, I know. He was great. But they're really light at tight end right now. So the Lions went out and signed a veteran, a 33-year-old tight end. And like I said, his name's been floated out there the last few weeks because of initially the Sam Laporta injury. But that is tight end Zack Ertz. That's right. Zack Ertz is signing with the Detroit Lions through the practice squad. He's expected to play this weekend. Now, what I think we need to point out about this is, first off, I would assume the Lions probably had prior contact with Zack Ertz. I would assume around the time that Sam Laporta got injured because we weren't sure if he was going to play. And again, shout out to him. He got his way right back to the Lions. He's like, yep, I'm not missing any time. But I would bet, I could be wrong, that the Lions had some sort of communication with him, like immediately, like, hey, man, we don't know that we're going to sign you, right? Because if you make the signing like the Lions did here on Monday, you want to make that pretty quickly. If you want to try to have him play that weekend, like, he's got to get acclimated fast. So I would think there was some communication there, like, yeah, this could happen depending on where a tight end position is at. Laporta was able to play. We didn't make that move. Brock Wright also got healthy, so we were able to add some depth back. But right now, the Lions are really light at that position. And the Lions went out and signed a veteran to add to this tight end room. Now, Zack Ertz productively hasn't been the same player that he was, going back to 2018, 2019, 2018 and 19, he was statistically incredible. Like, one year he had over 1,100 yards. He had a 900-plus yard season. Statistically, he was great. And it's slowly kind of taken steps back as we've kind of moved on here through Zack Ertz's career. However, he's still been productive recently as well. I mean, you just look at the numbers alone. 2021, 74 receptions on 108 targets, 763 yards and only 3 drops. 2022, 47 receptions on 66 targets, 400-plus yards, only 3 drops. And then this season, in a shortened season because of a quad injury, which cut his season short, he was ultimately let go by the Arizona Cardinals in November. He also was really not their number one tight end. Like, he kind of came into the year as like he's that dude. But Trey McBride has taken over in this tight end room for the Arizona Cardinals, and they've had some nice young pieces as well outside of Trey McBride, and they ended up letting him go in November with the quad injury. So what I've watched for this video is what we've seen most recently, the 2023 film. This is not going back at all. Now, this is a player that historically has been well known as a piece that moves around a ton. 3-by-1 receiver, you put him up, single him up one-on-one against a defensive back, you trust him to win those matchups. He was utilized as a slot, right? He wasn't just your typical inline tight end, right, that would maybe just run, some chips and just kind of sit down and really just be there as a blocker. No, this was a move tight end, right? This is a very flexible tight end offensively that they look to win a lot of those man-to-man matchups, and that's actually where I thought he made his money, was his ability to win man-to-man coverage in the past. Now, I don't know if he's that same player, okay? I don't know. I didn't go back and watch what he was in 2019 a ton, but I can tell you what, he probably isn't the same player from what I've seen. However, he definitely still adds value, and I want to talk about what value I think he can add to the Lions. Coming in very quickly here, short amount of time, what value he could add on Sunday if he does play this Sunday against the San Francisco 49ers. So I got my notes. Let's dive right into it. This isn't going to be a full breakdown, but it is what I've seen so far, and I'm going to give you some of the things that I take away. First thing I start off with here is the guy's hands. Now, you look at the numbers, right, the drops. historically, he's been really good in terms of he doesn't drop a lot of passes. And I think it makes sense when you just watch his pass catching technique alone. This is a player that chest high, very smooth, very fluid. One of the best assets, I think, for him when you talk about yards after catch, though I don't think he's much of a threat there at all currently. What I think one of his best assets is how fast his transition is from catch to tuck and take off. He's very smooth, very fluid in that process. And you can see how natural it is. His ability to kind of go down, scoop it off the turf, very natural with his hands. And I think because of that, he also does a really nice job with concentration, looking through the ball. It makes sense why historically he just doesn't have a lot of drops. Now, with that being said, he had 4 drops this year. And man, he had some easy drops from just the games that I went through. With that being said, where things started to get kind of iffy seemingly when watching him was when the ball seemed to kind of get a little bit out of, kind of out of his frame a little bit. Like, hey, it's a little bit over his head. Now he's got to go up and try to take it out of the air. He's athletically probably not the same guy he was 10 years ago, right? He doesn't look like much of a leaper or a kind of guy that you're going to want to put it just outside of his area code and he's going to go find it and go get it. He's not really that from what I've seen, but he is a guy that if you put it around him, the pass catching technique is consistent, and he'll probably give you consistent results as a pass catcher. He feels very reliable as a level 1 / sort of level 2 pass catcher. However, there just is inconsistencies when the ball seemingly gets beyond his frame. When it gets a little bit over his head, he has to get out in the air, go get it, or it's really low, and you're asking a guy that's 33 years old to get down really quickly and make a fast adjustment. I don't really see that. Okay, I don't really see that right now, at least in this game. I do think he's a pretty fluid athlete just when you watch in his play style, but as a pass catcher, I like his hands. I think he's got easy, fluid hands, and he has a really nice technique about it, but I also don't think like he's a guy that you're going to want to make him go chase a whole bunch of things. So there's that aspect of it, which is why I feel there's less consistency once you get him level 2, level 3 types of passes down the field. The further you push it, the more consistency you could probably find there. But what he does have is strong hands, man. He's catching with 2 hands consistently, very strong hands. Once it hits his hands, getting that thing to his body really strong through contact, pulling that away from a defender. I absolutely love that. But like I said, average at best, I think, in flexibility to just go get the ball that's down and away or something like that. Now, in terms of route running, I think this is where he adds the most value. Even right now, again, this is not based on what he did 7 years ago. Right now, his biggest value to me is what he is as a route runner, and there's still a lot of things to like here. He's only, I think, maybe average sufficient at best in terms of his ability to just run by people and be a super threat, attacking the seam on some of those vertical routes. But what he does so well, and there's so many things that he does well. First off, he's very crisp at the top of his route. I think what stands out about him, and some of this probably comes back to experience as well, whether it's man or zone, but specifically I think in zone coverage, is how crisp he is at his route breaks, right within 10 yards, his ability to break the top of the route, create separation, but also that ties along with how disciplined he runs his routes, from eye discipline, right, not giving the defender a tell whatsoever, also the way that he paces his routes to allow himself to not only get out of his breaks super crisp, there's no fade to it, right, he can flatline things easy, but at the same time, as a defender, he doesn't give you tell set, he doesn't stand straight up, it's not very noticeable, he's very crisp, very smooth at the top of his routes, man, and he sells it really well. The entire route stem, from eyes to body language, he is money as a route runner, and I think that's why he's so effective at creating separation in small windows against linebackers, specifically in zone coverage, being able to create windows.
Now, I don't think he gives you a huge vertical threat in terms of just running by you. So here against a DB, you can see there's not a ton of separation at the top of the route. I like how he runs it, though. I love the angles he takes into defenders to try to create that separation. You see, not a ton of separation at the top of the route on this play in particular, but I still like how he runs this. It's just matched up with the DB in the spot, doesn't separate as much.
And he does a really nice job of making himself a really good target for the quarterback, whether that's a broken play and just saying, let me go get in front of this guy, or whether it's late on the play, he just kind of starts to fade back, get himself back into the frame. One thing I love about Zack Ertz, man, from what I've seen, and it's so noticeable so quickly, is his ability to make himself a really good target, be a best friend for a quarterback, man. He makes himself open, does a really nice job alerting quarterbacks, like, hey, I'm open. Let me get my hands up there. You see me. I'm over here. Like, just so you know, I'm open on this play. He does a really good job of that. But, man, the discipline that he runs with. Now, I do think that he lacks some real burst out of his breaks. You see it in kind of whip routes. There's not a lot of, like, oh, man, he plants it. Now he's separating. You don't see a ton of that. So, to me, it's more about the discipline. It's also a lot of, I think, fluidity in terms of he's got, like, loose hips. You had to talk about that as a corner, the ability to transition. He's really loose as a route runner, right? He's not stiff really at all. And what I think is interesting about the signing is that the Lions could have went different routes, right? There are players that the Lions had, for example, in training camp, right? They had different players that you could have looked at as more of a stationary pass protector, or a guy with just straight long speed like a Daniels that the Lions had in the training camp that could run away from guys, right? Former receiver, physical body, but maybe he wasn't the most precise route runner. Yet the Lions chose chose to go with the guy that brought the fluidity, right? Brought the reliability as a pass catcher. Reliability, I think, in a lot of sense. A guy that just has been here. It's not going to be too big for him. Yet at the same time, some people are saying he's ring chasing. I'm cool with that because that means we're about to go get a ring. But at the same time, I think just as a route runner, man, the flexibility that you see at the top of the routes, the lean that he has, like, he looks good. He looks really good as a route runner. You can also see just kind of in the way that he's built, right? He's not physically like a big bulky guy. He's a little bit looser. He does lack a little bit of route strength. Like, you could kind of physical him up a little bit if you were able to get, really good hit on it, or if he was working within 5 yards. However, but he does a really nice job specifically with his hands. And this is where he makes himself difficult as well. So you talk about the nuance of everything, the nuance of his hand usage. This dude's always keeping himself clean. He does a really good job. Now, in line, I guess you could probably give him some issues, get up on him onto the line, maybe kind of make it difficult for him to get off. And he also, again, doesn't, to me, have some of that burst or that long speed where he's just an extreme threat for linebackers, for example. What he does have is he uses his hands so well. So rarely do you see him at the line get stuffed at the line. He's usually clean off the line of scrimmage, usually clean through the stem of his route. Man, this dude does a really nice job of the hand usage, separating through hand usage, but also not being completely like, I'm pushing off, let me get open. Like, it's very subtle, it's very smooth, and it's very active and ready hands, man. He did a great job with that separating. So it was difficult for guys to kind of just hang on him. He didn't allow guys to hang on him. Top of the route, I love his pace. I love his setups. I love his discipline. I think he's really good in kind of level one area, whether that's stick routes, whether that's little out routes. You put him in the slot or you have him in line, some of those little out routes, sitting down in the middle of the field. I think the reliability, the consistency there, the ability to also read defenders before the ball gets to him, kind of get a sense of where everybody is. Then he can concentrate through the catch and then make sure he knows where he wants to go once the ball gets in his hands, rather than when the ball's coming towards him, looking at the defense and saying, okay, and then he drops it. I didn't see a lot of that. So for me, I think as a level one target, between 0 really to 9 yards, I think this is a very reliable target within your offense. And that's actually the place that I like him the most. Now, he still shows some of that route running like, whoa. Even on this drop touchdown here where he runs this stick nod, right? A lot of the stick routes, he runs a stick nod here. And again, the hand usage, the separation, this should be a touchdown. Ball gets a little bit over his head, doesn't finish on the play. Sometimes that just happens. But like I said, I don't think you want to put the ball a lot closer to him because he's going to be reliable if the ball's on him. He won't drop any of those passes at all. And he does have strong hands. But at the same time, athletically speaking, you don't want to make him go chase things. With that being said, though, like the route running of that just kind of shows you what he's still got. And then as a blocker, it's interesting because this isn't like a guy that you look at and you're like, man, he's an elite blocker. Like, I never felt like that. The first time I watched Ertz when I came back today, never really felt like that watching him as a blocker. Like, man, this dude, that's who he is. I don't really feel like that when I watch him, but I do feel like there's some good spots for him. First off, like I said, he's a move tight end. He moves around a ton. So you have the flexibility to put him in a lot of spots, put him in motion. You can use him on some of those, how we do our tosses where we have both tight ends kind of come along on short motion before the snap. Very capable of doing that. Very capable on the move. I think he's really good in terms of tracking as a nice radar into the second level. You also see it like if a play gets beyond, if like let's say a quarterback takes off or someone catches it underneath and he's running a deep route, he'll go find someone to block. So I think he's really good out in space in that sense. He does a nice job with body positioning. Where he seems his most consistent is inline. His ability to kind of just seal up on the backside, good hand usage, good positioning into the block as an inline blocker. He's not a physically imposing, blocker at the point of attack. He's not moving guys off their spots. You didn't see that, but I thought the way he played against Kayvon Thibodeau, for example, I was like, this looks really good. All right, I'm not saying Kayvon's the best run defender, but I was like, he looks really good, really consistent here, really good with his initial hand placement. Does a nice job avoiding flags as well on top of that. I think he's a little bit stiff, so as well as I think he can move, he's a little bit agile in space. I think he's a little bit stiff in terms of the ability to, again, cut block, split zone. You get somebody consistent. Like, I don't know about that. And again, he's not really a people mover from what I was able to take away. Maybe if it's on a DB, you could get some movement, but not really a people mover. And his pass protection hasn't been great either. I think that's one of the bigger concerns. And I didn't see a ton of reps of this. I think usually he's running the routes. So that's probably what he'll do here as well. I would assume if he's out there on third down, he's probably going to be someone that's running a route, and that's where his biggest threat comes in. But at the same time, he hasn't been a great pass protector, but I do feel like some of his traits could allow him to be better there than what we've seen. Now, one of my biggest knocks is I don't think he does much once the ball gets in his hands. Maybe this was more of a threat in the past. Doesn't seem to be much of a factor once the ball gets in his hands. There's not a lot of make you miss, not a lot of shiftiness, not a lot of change of direction, definitely not a lot of like breakaway speed. But again, what he does do is he has a nice sense of where he wants to get to, and the transition is very quick. So if he is no one in the area, he'll transition quickly. He'll pick up some yards out of it. So again, this is a guy that's been there. He understands the playoff moment. At the same time, he's played a lot of football, right? Like, he'll get it. This is not a guy that's going to be confused, run blocking, pass protection, route running. But at the same time, he also brings you some real nuance as a route runner, right? As a pass catcher. And maybe this is a game where the Lions feel like they want to have another one of those guys, just someone else that can win. whatever it is, the Lions could have went different routes with it. They could have went with a pure blocker, but they went with a guy that I think can make some money as a receiving threat. So interesting decision, but the 6'5", 250-pound tight end is now a Detroit Lion. He's on the practice squad. Like I said, he's expected to play this weekend. Now, a couple of side notes to this, just some little updates here. Jonah Jackson dealing with his injury. It sounds like he's not going to play this weekend, and because of that, we're going to see KO likely stepping in at left guard. He had a slight meniscus tear is what, the reports were, and it sounds like he's going to miss. Now, they didn't guarantee it at least today, so I guess, that's a good thing. Maybe he could play in the Super Bowl. We get that bye week that Dan Campbell was talking about. But for the NFC Championship, sounds like he may not be able to go this weekend. And like I said, KO'd, he's been better. He's been better ever since he's been here. He's improved. Not great. Pass protection wasn't great this last game. 5 pressures on 30 pass protecting snaps. That's 1 every 6. That's not good. And you are facing a really good front. Obviously, you want to help those guys out. Try to keep him out of obvious passing down situations. I don't think he's terrible in pass protection, but it's not great, right? But that's understandable. You get blown blocks elsewhere too. Graham Glasgow didn't have the best day either in this last game. Run blocking, though, it's solid. Like he's been an improving piece. So he'll probably get the snaps. Outside of that, Frank Ragnow, sounds like he was playing through a sprained knee and ankle. Dude is just a warrior. Bro, we got so many warriors on this team, and it's awesome because we've had these guys, Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, you got Jonah J. These dudes are tough, right? But Penny, so you go down the list, Graham Glasgow, but in the past it was like, oh man, we weren't really in this position. So these guys were tough, and you knew that, but now they're really getting to showcase, and everybody's seeing how tough these guys really are, man. They just fight through things. They find a way to get out there. So again, I expect KO to play. On the practice squad, the Lions do have options like Michael Neese, who's played in the interior at every spot essentially. They do have a Dan Skipper option. They have Michael Schofield as well, who we have not seen yet, but he's a guy that I think could absolutely be their next option up. We know they have Colby Sorstel, but I wouldn't be shocked if Michael Schofield was someone that was activated for the first time. I don't know what he looks like in practice, but I'm saying at some point I would not be shocked if the veteran guard gets a look for the Lions here. So that's where we're sitting at with some of the injury updates that we have. We'll of course get more of that as the week goes on and when we start to get these practice reports. Final thing I will say is this, side note, I think it's worth checking out. Mark Sanchez was on Fox Sports 1 today, and he spoke about Mark Brunell, and we don't really talk about Mark Brunell a lot over here, and I don't want to show the clip because it's probably copyright, but he spoke about how Mark Brunell, how he kind of takes you in as his own, right? Mark Brunell, how good is he as a coach? What do you feel like he's been for Jared Goff? We talk about, the little things, and you can see Goff's improvement, footwork. Like, you can see the things they've continued to work on. You can see it get better. And he talked about how Mark Brunell was so great for Mark Sanchez, and he was great for him. If you just want to hear a little bit about that, it was kind of some awesome stories that he gave. So, he said they'd bring him over Tuesday nights. They'd have pizza nights with the family. And then also on top of that, he said, like, Mark Brunell would like find the quarterback if your quarterback kind of showed up the coordinator. Like, they're like, hey, he said it was palms up. Like, if they're looking over the sideline like this, like, yo, what are you guys doing? He's like, you don't show up your offensive coordinator. This is what he told Sanchez. You don't show up your offensive coordinator. That's on you. Let him know. And we've seen that from Goff. Like, hey, let him know. If you can't hear, let him know. But that's on you. Don't show up your coordinator or I'll fine you for that. And then obviously he said it went through like a end of the year dinner party. I kind of told you everything that he said, to be honest, right there, but still think it's worth checking out. And by the way, something's working because, again, for the second straight game, we'll look at this in the All-22. We got a no-look pass for Jared Goff. Can we? I mean, look, I don't even want to go all into this, but the design here from Ben Johnson, right? The design here to take away the safety by understanding that the linebacker is going to pass to the safety for the inside slot, using St. Brown to kind of walk him out of the play, then having Goff look there and essentially no-look the safety into the back of the end zone. Second straight week, another no-look pass from Jared Goff. Just thought I pointed out, Goff is on one. Playoff Goff is what they call him in the streets. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.